Hello, everyone. This is Adam Schwend. I am joined, as I always am, with our illustrious state representative, Suzanne Weber, for another episode of From the District, which we are trying to do on a weekly basis during the session, which doesn't mean a whole lot because this is a very short session. But Representative, how are you?
Well, let me tell you, I'm busy. What they say, busier than a cat in a room full of rocking chairs. There are so many things going on. It's amazing.
I've always heard it as a one-legged man in a butt kicking contest, but yours is probably nicer. Yes, you are. I swear, I set down my phone for 10 minutes and I come back to 15 text messages.
Right.
There is so much going on, and when you think you know what's going on, you turn around and you find out you are absolutely wrong.
Yes.
But I wanted to have us talk a little bit about how things are going. We're going to be, for those of you who love to hear about Representative baking brownies and how Dog Martin is doing. This might not be the episode for you. This is because we're in session. We're going to be talking about a lot of policy and some of the bills that the representative is working on that are positive, and a couple that there's got a lot of concern about. So
yeah, and I'm at my daughter's house, so you can see I'm not red anymore, except I'm red. I stay with her because it's only 25 miles, from the Capitol, and I leave early in the morning and I come back late at night.
Yes, I think we were texting, and it's just as we record this, it's about 7 o'clock and in the evening, and you pretty much just got home not too long ago. So
yes,
and
I'll tell you what the scenario is right here, right now. We have worked day and night for the last couple of weeks to get through all of the hearings that are related to all of the bills in the 4 committees that I'm in. And we've spent some long hours. Well, now the bills that we have passed have gone to the floor, have gone to Ways and Means, have gone to Rules, depending upon where we thought they should be sent in whichever committee. And every committee is doing that. If it went to Ways and Means, it's stacked up because last week there were 86 bills that were in line in Ways and Means. Okay, then, they'll come to the floor and we'll pass them, and then they'll go to the Senate. And then the Senate is doing the same thing. And now the Senate is starting to send bills over to us. So today we had public hearings on 2 of those bills in health.
Yes, and so I want to get to those, but I want to let's start positive.
Sure.
Let's start positive. Let's talk about some of these bills that you're sponsoring and we'll see where they're at. One of the biggest ones, for some people, it might not be a big bill, but certainly for you and certainly for us in the district, it is a big bill. And that's House Bill 4053. That bill would direct ODOT to do a study on the condition and the cost to fix Highway 6, which connects Western Washington County with Tillamook County. Anybody who has driven on that road knows that it is a mess.
Right.
And this has been a priority for you. So tell us about that bill and tell us where it's at.
Right now, I'm very happy to say that tomorrow it's coming to the floor to be voted on by the House. It slid out of committee on a greased slide because everyone knows just how important fixing that road is. Now let's hope when we get out there in front of those 60 representatives that they also feel the same way about making improvements to that road. So that'll be tomorrow. And so hopefully by tomorrow afternoon, I'll be dancing in the Capitol
So for the folks who are wondering what tomorrow means, today is the 21st, President's Day. So it is due to the floor tomorrow, the 22nd.
Right.
And so
So,
yeah,
I mean, it is fortuitous. It's
yeah,
Tuesday,
yes.
the second month, the 22nd day, the 22nd year. Let's hope we get it done before 2 o'clock.
Oof, boy, that would be nice. Um,
Which is
yeah.
another thing is right now we're also looking at extending the hours that we have on the floor.
Mhm.
Right now, we're on the floor from 11 to 1 every day with the threat of additional hours if more bills come for us to have to consider, and time's running out.
Mhm. And it is, I did see the schedule. You are set to work on Saturday this week.
Yes.
So that is, and that's not uncommon as you get closer to the end of the schedule, end of the session. I know at least Speaker Kotek tried to avoid Sundays, but when things between former leader Drazen and her got rather heated, she did threaten that she would call Sunday sessions. Now we have Speaker Rayfield, so it'll be interesting to see how he reacts to this. So 4053, I was really impressed with the number of legislators from the metro area who recognized that this is a problem. Senator Gorsuch from, I believe, Gresham, he reached out to you afterwards, wanted to talk to you about it. Said so did Representative Pham from East Portland. These are not members of your party. These are not folks who have the
No,
same political philosophy, but they see the need.
right. And those are also the same people that love to go to the beach and love to experience the outdoors. And Tillamook County has not really become the Disneyland of Oregon. We're sort of the raw, the bare, the real outdoors. And that's what they come for. And so they know that road, and they also come there, come to Tillamook so they can go fishing.
And so do their constituents. And so I think they are representing their constituents well by wanting to have this road fixed. Because their constituents like to come. Maybe their constituents like to eat Tillamook cheese and Tillamook ice cream.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the things you said in the committee that, and actually the Tillamook Creamery was there to testify in favor of the bill, was that if we don't fix this problem, that means it's the only other thing to do if we have a situation where that highway fails or can't have semi-traffic, is to reroute up to Highway 26 or most likely Highway 30, which is going to add 2-3 hours.
Right, and it's also going to add added regulations, for PUCs, for truck drivers, and time.
Right.
And it's also going to increase the cost of goods that's available to us on the coast too.
Right. Which with inflation already kind of going crazy, it's just a bad thing. So I think it came out of committee unanimously, and I think we're all feeling really good about it making it out of the floor, but how great would it be if it came out off the floor unanimously?
Oh, wouldn't that be wonderful?
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about another one that I think it's really important to you as a former educator, and that's House Bill 4134, which you're chief co-sponsoring with 2 Democrats.
Yes, I am.
With Senator Frederick and Representative Nathanson. Senator Frederick is from the Portland area, and Representative Nathanson is from Eugene. Tell us about that bill. Where is it? And
well, we started.
What got you going on it?
We started meeting because we all had a common interest in testing, especially when some state testing was suspended. Then we started asking questions about, okay, how much testing, how much standardized testing is there in the state? And so we formulated the request for a bill to do a study on exactly how much testing is going on in our schools, the time, the money, the type, what is your aim or your goal in this testing? Is it something that the teachers are going to benefit in knowledge so that they can use it to improve their curriculum? What kind of stress factors are we putting on kids when we're testing too much? Are we testing too much? I know that one of the representatives said that in a survey in his area, he discovered that there were 18 different standardized tests in that particular school district. And it absolutely floored him because they couldn't really give him a reason as to what the total purpose was in doing this. What were they gaining? And I know that when we gave standardized tests, sometimes we wouldn't get the information until the end of the year. And then the information would go into their file, and it probably didn't get looked at again. And so what kind of a difference does standardized testing really make on the education of that child?
You mentioned 18 standardized tests. I think it's important to mention that's just 1 year. I believe there was a gentleman who was a retired educator from that hearing, a retired educator from Eugene, did his own survey with a former colleague and found that over the course of an academic career, a student will take 146 standardized tests. This is Eugene, because the standardized tests aren't just statewide. We have district-wide standardized tests, specific schools standardized tests.
Right. And this is in the hope that we'll be able to understand what kind of tests are being given and what the results are, and what we can recommend educationally, because these tests are also not inexpensive. They cost the districts money. Is there something we could be spending our money on more wisely? And you know that I support the funding of education.
Oh, certainly. I believe we were talking, and you said that Tillamook School District has a position that is solely to administer standardized tests.
In the elementary schools, they hire someone to just do testing of the children. Yes.
Wow. I wonder how many people actually know that.
Well, it's usually a retired teacher that takes the position. And so it's an interesting position to be in.
Well, it's good to, this legislature thing doesn't work out for you. Maybe you got a future there, right?
I could go and give tests to first graders. Yes.
Yeah. So right now that bill is in Ways and Means. It was sent to the subcommittee of Ways and Means, who suggested an amount to be spent. It is now sent it back to the full Ways and Means. So as you mentioned, they've got a backlog, and really hope that it comes out. I know the chair of Ways and Means in the House is also on the subcommittee for Ways and Means education. So hopefully she's able to be a champion for that bill as well, because she was supportive of it.
I'm hoping because, we are addressing issues of equity and inclusion. And equity and inclusion are also represented in the testing. And yes, they can give us good numbers and good data, but how are we using that?
Right. And the last two bills, I think we've gotten a little bit. I think the only pushback that we've gotten on these bills has been, you don't need a study, you just need to go fix the problem. And that's nice.
No, that's nice. That's a good philosophy to have. But if you don't know what the problem is, if you don't know what the scope of the problem is, how can you even make suggestions to fix those problems that are valid?
Right. And I've kind of likened it to having a cough. Well, you can just say, well, go take some cough medicine and fix the cough. well, maybe the cough is something else, and that's
Right.
just a symptom of the illness. You need to dig down to really what's causing it. So for those folks who are driving over Highway 6 and they see the giant sinkhole, and some folks will say, well, we know what the problem is, just go fix the sinkhole. Well, what's causing the sinkhole?
Right.
Maybe we should ask that
Right.
question. And
The
that's the
whole, the
purpose of the
earth is
study.
moving beneath our feet. Yes.
Yes. Yes, so we that's the purpose of these study bills, and I think we have a really good history here in Oregon, or a very long history here in Oregon, of um, putting out policy and idea and just letting it go out there, and
Yeah.
never bringing it back and looking at it,
Right.
never studying it and find out what the results are, and actually trying to fix them. And that's what you're doing in these two bills, is saying, wait a minute, guys, we need to look at what these issues are and what at the core, and deal with
Yeah.
them.
And that's the focus of the short session. It's to do these little fixes
Right. In theory.
in theory, because, we do have some really ginormous bills in
Mhm.
front of us also. And one of them is the, what is it, 4002?
Oh, you're getting ahead of me, Representative. You're getting ahead of me.
Sorry,
Sorry. Yeah. We
ag
talk
overtime.
folks, we talk about what these bills are, and she gets really wound up on a few of them, and rightfully so. And she wants to get to them. But I'm going to bring her back. I want to talk
Okay.
about one more good bill that you're
Okay.
sponsoring, and that is HB 4134, which deals with, this might seem like weird to some people, especially those folks who only have one hospital anywhere near them, uh, uh, dealing with folks who are in a state of emergency, are moved from
Yes.
one hospital to another. And maybe you want to tell the story about how this came
Well,
about.
this came as a result of a young couple that were awaiting their first child. And, they, at that point in time in our lives, we all have limited resources, and we need to know that insurance covers everything. And they had worked it all out, so they knew that when they went to the hospital, everything would be taken care of under their insurance policy. Well, her water broke. They went to the hospital. They waited and waited and waited, and they couldn't be admitted. And so finally, they were transported to another hospital. And the husband asked, is this going to be covered? Is this? And he wasn't given a real positive answer, but it was, well, I'm sure it will be. Well, when they got to that other hospital and they delivered their wonderful little girl, they discovered that it wasn't covered. And because of COVID and the situation that we are in, they were facing huge medical bills because the hospital they were transported to wasn't going to cover them to the extent that the hospital that they were planning to go to.
Right.
Well, come to find out, this has happened to a lot of people. And so that's something that needs to be taken care of. And so there is a bill that guarantees that when you have to be transported for that sort of an issue, that your insurance coverage will be in effect. And it's really a good thing because, the hospitals now are involved in the negotiations along with the insurance companies. And there'll be action taken on this. And somebody won't be facing a $40,000 medical bill because of this.
And I think for those folks maybe in the district who they just go to their local hospital, whether it's Adventist Health or Providence or Columbia Memorial or any of those, they don't really think about it. But imagine you live in Seaside and you're planning on delivering your baby at Providence there, and you've got Providence insurance and everything's through Providence. You get there, you find out, well, gosh, everything's just chock full of COVID patients. We can't admit you.
Right.
But hey, we're going to transport you down to Adventist Health down in Tillamook, and they've got a bed. They'll take care of you. and then all of a sudden you get a $15,000 or $20,000 medical bill.
Plus
That
the
isn't covered.
transport.
Plus the transport that isn't covered by your insurance,
Right.
because it's out of network. But you did everything right. You showed up to the hospital that you were told to go to because
Right.
it was covered by your insurance. You waited, and they just said, we don't have any room for you. And
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. When you're having your first baby, a lot of the times you don't have an extra $15,000 in the couch cushions.
Well, for crying out loud, if you're having your third baby, you haven't got anything in the couch cushions except
As
for a
somebody
baby
who
of
just
graham crackers.
As somebody who just had their fourth baby, I can tell you I can't even afford couch cushions anymore. So that bill, boy, I have never seen so many co-sponsors on a bill.
Yes.
I mean, almost the entire house has
Yes.
co-sponsored that bill. So kudos
Everyone.
to you to sponsor it. Kudos to you for sponsoring that bill, recognizing that. I know she reached out to us probably second to sponsor this bill. I had a great conversation with her, and
Yes.
she and her husband are just wonderful people, and it was just great. It was just a real win
It
for
was.
everybody. And making good policy, coming together and making common sense policy. It's almost like you legislate.
Right.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
dear.
Now we can talk about the crap. The stuff that you really wanted to talk about. Let's talk
Well,
about HB 4002, the bill that would remove the exemption on agriculture workers for overtime pay.
yes.
For those folks, if you read the Oregonian or you read local statewide news at all, you have undoubtedly heard about this bill. You have probably, if you've heard from the supporters, you've heard just from their point of view. Would love to hear your thoughts on this, Representative, where you stand and what you think is going to happen.
Well, first of all, agriculture is not all the same thing. It is not an hourly job. If you work in livestock, dairy, sheep, pigs, chickens, it's different than picking pears and cherries. It's and so to equate the two on the same scale is not fair. Because if there's a cow being born somewhere, you're gonna be required to stay there and make sure that that calf is okay, or that horse is okay, or the sheep out in the field are, they're secure once they're starting to lamb. And it's different in so many ways, and we cannot, at this point in time, equate them all together. The harvest is an especially aggressive work time, and people make a lot of money because they have to work hard for a lot of hours. But then if they aren't a regular on the farm, when there's no cherries to pick, there's not much for them to do. Trimming the trees, is one thing, but that doesn't take up the time, the effort, and the energy as anything else. And so to have one bill that equates all of them the same is not fair. Right? It's not fair to the workers.
Right.
It's not fair to the farmers, because the farmers have a crop and they have a product, and they can't say, okay, well, this year I think I'm going to charge maybe $2.50 for a pound of cherries. No, all of those things are set. The farmer cannot set the prices that they are asking for the crops that they are providing. That's all predetermined.
Right.
And
So
market is a part of it. And so it is such a convoluted bill that we just need to come to a solution that's going to address all aspects of agriculture. There's been a movement to take livestock and livestock related parts of agriculture out of the bill, but I'm not seeing any kind of action right now concerning that. And it was brought up to us today that Oregon, it pays probably the most to its agriculture workers as anyone in the United States. We're at the top of the list for what we pay our agriculture workers. And in that is also housing and usually meat and milk. And I know some farmers provide a rig and gas for the rig and the insurance for the rig and a cell phone. So I would hate to see a bill passed that would penalize our farm workers for on a 40-hour overtime week. But on the other hand, the legislature has to address it and has to come to a decision, because if they don't, then the Bureau of Labor and Industry, BOLI, will take over and they will decide what needs to be done. And so every day we hear, we need an Oregon solution. We need one that is going to be specific for our state and our circumstances. Hopefully, we will come to that point by the end of the session. And we will have something that we can be proud of as a state, and that we can be, guaranteeing security for our farm workers, because we can't do it without them. We can't.
Yeah, I think there were two really, as we've talked and I've watched this bill kind of morph, and even before this year, because this was kind of a continuation of a bill that Representative Salinas had in the last session. There were two things that I saw in massive unintended consequences that were going to come out of this. And one was just, you can only squeeze a business so far before they just say, we can't do this anymore. And they just shut it down.
And I know of one farmer who has 7 workers on a continuous basis. And what basically he said to his crew was, if this goes through, one of you is going to lose your job.
Yeah. Yeah. And on that note, the other thing that makes me just really pops out is the continuous autonomization of,
and that's what will happen too.
Yep.
Farmers are going to have to go into more debt to be able to automize their facilities, and so that you're taking the whole human factor out of it.
Right. And that just,
and the thing is, a lot of our farm workers, and especially in a lot of the farms that I know of, these folks have worked for these people for so long, they're like family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I think this seems like another bill that's, always be afraid of the person who comes out and says, don't worry, I'm here to help you. Right. What Reagan said, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. I think most of the people who are supporting this bill really have the best of intentions. They want to help people. They just don't see the unintended consequences of what they are causing, because they don't, how many of them even been on a farm before?
Well, and when it comes to the harvest part of it, if someone is going to be working there 40 hours and they need more money, they're going to be going to another farm. Mm-hmm. They're going to have 2 jobs or 3 jobs in order to make it up. Right. And so, then you get into a position where you've got people that are tired and overworked, and you have the more of an opportunity for accidents. And
so instead of having somebody making,
they're never getting to be at home and with their family.
Instead of doing 50 or 60 hours a week, they're going to do 80 because they have to do 40-hour shifts. Yeah. I know your caucus and some others had a solution that they supported, and I think you mentioned it. It's still, of course, I'm not privy to those inside conversations, but I think something like that is still on the table.
The thing that they, is on the table also is, tax credits for farmers who pay overtime. Mm-hmm. But that is a diminishing return. So it'll start out at a high percentage in the beginning, and then after 5 years, it will disappear.
Right. Right. Well, we're certainly keeping an eye on that one. I heard rumors of its demise early today. I never believed that until the gavel goes down. Um, but I think one of the things you point out is that that bill dying, that doesn't fix the problem. And if
It
Boley
doesn't.
comes in, you have an agency coming in and forcing its
Right.
opinion down everybody's throat instead of the elected representatives of Oregonians. And boy, we don't want to do that either. So, okay, well, that was depressing. Let's move on to.
Well, more depressing.
Oh, yeah. I'm just a barrel of monkeys over here. Senate Bill 1529. You mentioned that the Senate is starting to send over bills.
That is a nice little Sudafed bill.
Yeah, Representative,
This
was supposed to implement Representative Post's Sudafed bill to make it so that people could buy Sudafed.
It would make it so a pharmacy tech could scan an ID.
Right. That required legislation, which privacy is important, so that makes sense.
Right.
But this turned into a kind of an omnibus healthcare bill, and one of the major things that I think really riled people up was giving the Oregon Health Authority the authority to declare emergencies on its own.
Yes.
Without the governor.
Yes. Without the governor.
Yikes.
Without the leader of the Oregon Health Authority either. It would be it's like the third step down. That's the person.
So the governor.
I will tell you that the person who would be doing that is a lovely person, and she's very smart, and she does a good job. But that's not the point.
And she won't always be there.
She won't always be there. Right.
Right. And so in order to, if we had a governor who believed that emergency shouldn't go on for 2 years, you would have a situation where the governor would have to fire the Oregon Health Authority director, fire the person below that, and then fire the third person below that.
Yes. And there's so much in that bill that is ambiguous. So what constitutes an emergency? Is it one case of measles in Harney County? Is it one whooping cough in the southern end of the state? What constitutes that? It's not defined in the bill.
And we've got a lot.
And I have told you before that there is this thing called a gut and stuff. You take a perfectly good bill, you take everything out of it, and you put in it something that is a monster. And this was sold as a perfectly good bill that has been turned into a monster. And I will tell you, I have received so many emails and communications from people who do not want this bill to pass. I didn't count them again today.
A lot.
Because I need to come up with an answer for these people. But the thing that this promotes is distrust in government. That's what it causes. You don't have any trust in your government when you see things like this happening.
That really, gosh, I hadn't really had that connect, but boy, this is a discussion I think we had in an earlier episode, maybe mid last year. Was we talk about how frustrated we get with political violence, and we just think of the January 6th attacks. We can condemn those things, and we should, but does anybody ever stop and think why people think like this? It's because of actions like this, is giving unelected bureaucrats authority to control your life. Maybe these people have the best of intentions, but when you take away take away power, you take away authority that people have always had, and you make them accountable to essentially no one, uh, people are going to lash out at that. And so
Right.
this is how we get January 6th. And I don't mean to minimize or conflate the two, but this is how we end up with people becoming violently angry with their government.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so
And
that,
there were people who testified today on that, on the 1029, that you could tell the frustration in their voices, and they would start out explaining exactly why they didn't want this bill to be considered. And by the time they finished, they were a bundle of nerves. They just
Mhm.
ready to explode. And
right.
it's that trust factor.
Yep. If you don't trust someone, it's very hard to do any sort of business with them at all. And so unfortunately, we have a lot of people who don't even vote because they don't think it matters, because they look at actions like this and say, why bother? Look what they're going to do without whether I say something or not.
Right. And the other thing is, some of these things, will pass because the votes will be there on the floor. And it isn't that we wanted it to pass, or it isn't that we didn't fight against it. It's that the majority was bigger than what we were, and the majority wanted that.
Right. And that we get a lot of emails on this, and a lot of bills. It's like, you, Representative, are a Republican, so you tend to get emails from Republicans wanting you to stop the Democrats.
Right.
Like, that just isn't how our system of government works. When the other side has more votes than you do, the other side can essentially do whatever it wants. Now, another set of emails we get is, well, you need to walk out. Well, when that hand is overplayed, there's already ballot measures being filed that would take that away from you.
Right.
If you overplay that hand, that's going to get taken away. You can't walk out every single time a bad bill comes up, because there are hundreds, if not thousands, of bad bills that come through every session, and you can't walk out every single time there's a bad
No, you
one,
can't.
because it's eventually they're going to change the rules, or they're going to file this ballot measure, and you're going to get that taken away from you, and then you have literally
Right.
zero tools in your tool belt. So folks, when you email and say that oh gosh, the Republicans aren't stopping the Democrats, or if those of you who are Democrats, you email, maybe some folks who aren't listening in Oregon, you're sitting in a red state, you want to say, why are the Democrats stopping the Republicans? It's a numbers game. There's more members of the Democratic caucus than there are of the Republican caucus.
Right.
So if the Democrats stick together, they're gonna win. They're gonna pass essentially what they want. What Representative Weber is here to do is to make your voice heard, so that if they jam something through, they're not doing it without you screaming along the way, so that your constituent's voice is heard. Maybe people aren't listening to it, and that's
Right.
a different
That's
question.
a different story.
Your voice is heard.
But the thing is, and I'm a big proponent of education.
Mhm.
People need to never stop educating themselves. They need to continue to, they say, well, I don't pay attention to the news anymore. Well, you know what? You need to.
Mhm.
You need to see what's going on, because if you don't, then life happens to you instead of you making life happen.
And I really encourage folks to step out of your echo chamber as much as you possibly can. It's really easy to, instead of looking for news to educate you, looking for news to just confirm your bias and confirm your personal opinion that you already have. Don't do that. That's
No.
not getting you anywhere. Really encourage folks to read a newspaper that you generally wouldn't believe. Just, if nothing else, listen to what the other side is saying. Maybe I'm weird, but I listen to a podcast every day from C-SPAN, and dry toast maybe, but you just get facts. You don't get anything else.
Right. And
certainly.
I read a variety of newspapers too.
Mhm.
It's not only the Oregonian, but it's also the Statesman Journal, and it's the New York Times, so that I can get a broad spectrum of opinions.
Yeah.
And I find that that's valuable too, to make up my mind, not so that I'm just listening to one outlet.
Right. We kind of went off the rails here, but
I know
before we wrap, we do that. Before we wrap up, we didn't talk about this, but I do want to mention it. The speaker sent out an email today announcing
Yes.
that sine die is imminent. This used to be a really crappy time for us, because what that means is that bills can be posted with 1 hour notice of a hearing.
Mhm.
And the frustration for us is that you can't get to Salem from anywhere in House District 32 in 1 hour. It is
No, you
impossible.
can't.
So essentially what we were being told was, unless you live in Marion County, you're screwed and your opinion doesn't matter. And it
Yes.
was really, really, really raked on a lot of us.
But
I don't like virtual government, but in this case,
virtual government is good. It is your
in
friend.
this case,
Yes.
right. So because all of the committees, and if you hear my cat meowing, I apologize. She's hungry. All of the committees this session are virtual. So you can testify from a phone call or from using Microsoft Teams. You can just register by going to OLIS. So you can go to
Right.
olis.oregonlegislature.gov, and you can find the bill that you want to testify. If you don't have time to be at the committee hearing, that's fine. You can submit written testimony. And I can tell you, as the guy who printed out all of that testimony for Representative Weber, keeping the, I think we single-handedly kept Weyerhaeuser and Hampton
Yes.
and Simpson in business over the session.
Well, we had one bill last week that had 216 pieces of testimony that were registered. 216 people gave their opinion, and it was put into the record. And that's very valuable, because in looking at that, only 7% of the testimony was for the bill, and the rest of the testimony was against the bill.
Mhm.
And so that tells me what the people want.
Right. So it's, if all you can do is submit testimony, it's worth it.
Yes.
It gets read, and it literally takes you 30 seconds. We had one guy who, I think it was every single bill, he would just submit the words, "I oppose this bill."
Yes.
That's all he did. And it had to be, he had to do it at least 500 times. It was, at that point, I stopped looking at it because I knew exactly what it was.
Exactly what it was going to be.
But then there
Yes.
was the one time he said, "I support this bill." And I totally started wondering about my beliefs and everything I believed in at that point. So all that to say, sine die being declared imminent, sine die being the declaration of adjournment of the legislature. That means that that a bill can be posted a hearing
1
for a
hour.
bill can be posted within an hour. So what that
Right.
really means is you can use OLIS, everybody, and you can actually track bills,
Yes.
get an email when a bill is being scheduled. Use that feature. It's really,
Right.
and for those folks
And
who
I use
don't
it
know
all
how
the
to,
time.
yeah,
I use OLIS
I do
all the
too.
time.
Yeah, oh, you have to. You have to.
Mhm.
I would, and for those folks who may not be familiar really how to use OLIS, um, really encourage you to go to former Representative Bill Post's
Post.
uh, um,
He's
YouTube
got a
page.
Facebook.
Was it
Yeah.
Facebook? I think it's on
He's got
YouTube
a
as well.
Facebook.
Well, go to
No,
his
I mean,
Facebook page or go to his YouTube page
YouTube page.
and just search OLIS, OLIS, and he has an awesome tutorial about how to use OLIS,
Yes.
because OLIS is like the anti-Cover Oregon or the anti unemployment filing website. It is the website that works like
It does.
spectacularly. The only complaint I have is you can't open more than one tab on it.
Right.
That's kind of a running joke among staff and lobbyists, but it
No,
really
but
is
you can
cool.
keep them lined up
Oh boy.
along the top of one of your screens, because you usually have three screens sitting in front of you.
Well,
And
you do.
you know, the reason that most of what we are doing right now is virtual is because the Capitol is still under construction for earthquake security. And so
Right.
all of the meeting rooms are closed.
Mhm.
And
Well, and I think you guys had a last session was rough with virtual hearings, but I think you guys really got the hang of it towards the end,
Yes.
and now you kind of picked up from where you left
Yes.
off.
And
it
did I
was-
tell you, I had my first two constituents, year and a half, and I had my first two constituents come and visit me last
Wow.
week. I was tickled.
Yeah, and that's, folks, the Capitol, even though the hearings are in virtual, the Capitol is open.
Yes,
You
it
can
is.
attend. We did have, I think we've had a couple of constituents check out the gallery and actually observe the House. As you mentioned, some come to your office and talk to you. You can do that. You can swing by. A representative is incredibly busy, so it's best to schedule an appointment. But if you're in town and want to swing by and say hi, you're certainly welcome to.
Yes,
Um,
love to see you.
Yes, that would be office H483, as I
Yes,
recall.
it is.
Hey, let's end with some good news. You know, last year you really went to the mat for kids because of so much frustration they went with. They had over over education and virtual learning and being able to have virtual learning. The reality is that in the state of Oregon, only 3%
Yes,
of students can enroll in virtual public school charter
yes,
schools. And one of your big things is kids should have the option to learn the way they learn best. And
and
you
I had
got
an amendment
noticed.
that tried to push that forward. Because, you know, parents get so frustrated when they can't put their kids in the kind of school that they want to put them in.
Mhm.
And then they have to file an appeal. And there are hundreds of people waiting in line to have their appeals addressed. So why don't you increase the percentage of children that are allowed to go out of the district or use an alternative method of education?
Yeah, and you're very humble in saying you had an amendment. You had an amendment, and you had a giant fight in committee,
Yeah.
which you lost, and then you caused a floor fight
Yes, I did.
over it, which was thoroughly entertaining to watch. But because of that, the Oregon Virtual Public Schools Alliance has awarded you the Golden Apple Award.
Isn't that nice? I
It
never
is.
thought I would get a golden apple.
Put that on your
Complete
desk.
surprise. And
Yes.
I'm very honored. recognized that way. Because, you know, I fought also for fully funded schools last year.
Yep.
And I thought I got that over the line.
We were
And I
close.
thought that was a done deal. And then the governor, line item vetoed the
Mhm.
fully funding of schools. And I just find that unconscionable that you would say that you supported education and then not put your feet to the ground and prove it.
Yep. Yeah, that, you're not a swearing woman, but I recall you uttered a few words that day.
Actually, I think I might have.
Oh, you did. I remember it.
Some days I have insufficient cuss words for the feelings that I have.
Oh, okay. I think it's pushing towards either bedtime or happy hour. I don't know which one which.
Well, I don't know. I just got home, so maybe I'll have, what time is it? 8 o'clock, 9?
Yeah, just about.
Oh, it's 8 o'clock. It's
Yeah,
dinner time.
perfect. Anything else you want to share with us tonight, Representative?
No, Adam, I appreciate you doing this
Mhm.
because I think it is so important to be to be able to talk to people about what's happening. And, I never felt that closeness, that there was somebody relating to me what was actually happening in the legislature. And so I think this is important. And I appreciate you doing this. And I appreciate all the people who listen to this and watch this also, because this is important. This is your government. This is what's going to continue to affect you long after this session is over in ways that you don't even know. So pay attention.
Well, thank you, Representative. You're a very busy person, so thank you for taking the time, taking an hour or so out of your time, out of your evening, your very limited spare time. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
Everyone,
Adam.
thank you for listening, and we will see you again
Yeah.
next week.
Next week, maybe we'll have even more news for you.
Hopefully all good.
All good. Yeah. Thank you.